Hello, everyone. It's live at 5 Mondays on Facebook with Cheryl Millett. Wanted to talk about genetics today. There's so much probably going to be developed with genetics coming forward. Another topic I wanted to speak on as well, and sometimes it's about bringing things back up to our awareness. This will be other people that will be coming on live at 5, so I'll bring up certain topics again and again. If anything, just kind of a summary, but bring it up. And then talk a little bit about nutrition, because nutrition is something that it's a very big area, but I just kind of want to frame it a little differently if that helps. And there might be a couple other things too as well, but I'll see what kind of pops in here. But welcome, and I look forward to seeing. Hello, Debbie. Hello, Lewis. It's great to see you. And I want to shout out a happy birthday to my cousin Jody as well. Let's get to genetics, because genetics is one of those things that, not being in the area of, just a geneticist, if that's what we're going to call them, is that genetics is interesting. For my book, I studied the Human Genome Project. Now, I just want to ask everybody on here, when I say the Human Genome Project, most people go, yeah, I remember that. I remember that coming up sometime. Was that a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades ago? Yeah, it was closer to 3 decades ago. They talked about unraveling the human genes and discovering, and it's going to be great. We're going to be able to explore treating disease with knowing which genes do what. Do you remember this? The Human Genome Project? The Human Genome Project is something that did start in the early 1990s, but they actually finished it up, I think 2003, under budget and sooner than they actually anticipated. So what does that mean? Well, the Human Genome Project was not showed that the human genome is not as complicated as they thought. And maybe we all thought here too as well that our genes were going to be much more complicated than than insects or rodents. But quite frankly, we are closer to a fruit fly and a mouse. They haven't done the genetic code for all living things, but we are much closer to them than they actually thought. Nowhere near as complicated as 100,000 genes. This is what they thought they were first going to uncover, but they didn't. Much closer to the fruit fly. And you can look this up, because you just have to Google Human Genome Project, and I might put the link down below for anybody who's wanting to explore. So what does that mean? Now, if you listen to people talk about it, geneticists and other people that are in that field, they will tell you that there's something about the genes that they just don't get enough information, which some of you may have heard of epigenetics. And so the genes are genes, and they're seemingly saying that they're fixed, but the epigenetics is like the light switch. They can turn on and off certain things that allow things to be this way or that way. A clear example was twins that were identical, and one had autism and one didn't. And when they were looking at the genes, they could see that there were some things that were turned on, and other areas turned off. But here's what I really want to get to, because we can talk about that for a long time and get further into what does it mean, and these protein genes and numbers and so forth. But this is what I want to talk to. They really don't know. They don't really know. And there was a professor that I was listening to, and he he was bald, and he jokingly said, "Listen, if we could figure these out, to the degree that most people are thinking we can, do you think I would be bald? And the point is that I'm not going to say it's a phase with genes, and people aren't going to try to still figure things out, and you do the ancestry and the 1, 2, 3 and me, something like that, and you're going to be doing that. And some of the other things out there are going to all pop up to say, well, listen, you get your DNA tested and genes, and we'll be able to figure out things. Well, he says they are so, when I say he, professors and other specialists say they are so not able to do this. Like, the meaning that some people are putting behind it is marketing. I know that's kind of it doesn't sound like there's no meaning to getting your DNA done. That's not a thing. But if you're choosing to get your DNA done for whatever reason, then consider that they don't know everything. They don't know everything. And when they have no idea how long and if ever they're going to find the cancer gene or these other genes, and doesn't, what are they looking at? Because at one level, science, I'm not saying that science is all, no, I'm not saying that don't believe in science at all, not at all. But the idea is that there was this physicist that I studied his book, and he said in his book, it's called 5 Easy Pieces. Do I have it here? Because I will reference it sometimes. Easy enough, but just not right here. But what he said is science is like looking at a game of chess, right? So the scientists are looking at the chessboard, and they're trying to figure out by observing what's going on. So they're not playing chess. The scientists are not playing chess. In essence, things are set the way they're set. Nature is set the way it's set. And the scientists are actually just observing. So if we use the example, if all of you remember how to play chess or do play chess, hello everyone, then the idea is, as an observer, you can only observe what you observe based on the tools that maybe you're looking through. A microscope, maybe the microscope is not that strong, so you're not going to see everything. When the scientists are watching chess and they're watching the pawn move forward and maybe taking people and so forth. But if the limited science then would say, well, if they watch the pawn long enough, they would know that the science shows that the pawn doesn't always do what it's still doing. That if it makes to the end of the board, it could become a queen. And this is where science will continue, and that we can be open to what will be added to science or what possibly will be changed. Like, oh, we got it wrong, right? We got it wrong. This leads me into nutrition. And nutrition, to me, can be kept very, very simple, which is we're looking at nature, right? We're looking at nature, the big word of nature, not the natural they use on the labels, but nature. Food is grown the best that it can with what it has to work with. And if you have fruits growing or vegetables or herbs or whatever growing in the wild, they are very strong, they are very hardy, hence they'll be very healing and be used medicinally on that, on that note. We have foods that are growing with a lot of chemicals. They're trying to modify them so they look a certain way, maybe they taste a certain way, and those kind of things. But if we just keep nutrition simple, we are looking for as naturally grown as possible. As naturally grown as possible. And we're also looking at moving away from or making choices of not actually having foods that are commercialized. I use commercialized because we think of the commercialization of animals and how a number of people are turning to vegetarian because of the way that is done. But they're also not eating their natural foods. So that's important when we're thinking about eating animal products. That even bees can be fed sugar water, right? Is that natural? These kind of things are going on. So how are you going to know that all of this, is going on? Well, we're going to have to work with asking questions or knowing enough about things in order to ask questions. But to keep it simple, to work with natural whole foods, in season even, picked ripe, which means local's going to be better. And we're looking just being real, eating real food. The other aspect, though, we can look at whole foods coming to us, and we can pick them up at the grocery store or a farmer's market, or even grow ourselves. But there's another key thing that takes the food that we know is more natural to the food that we put into our mouth. And that is, what are we doing with that food? That food, whatever you do to it, is going to denature itself. In some ways commercializing it, because you're on high heat, you're using chemicals as well. And, high heat for very long periods of time will actually, denature some foods more than others, right? So this is where fats, especially olive oil, is by far best to put on food after you've heated it up or cooked it, right? Just sprinkle it on. Salad dressings, well, that's easy. That's olive oil, pure and simple that way. And not all olive oils are created equal. That's, I talked in another one, is that. But that's what I wanted to talk about today, was the genetics, and that's coming into our food with when they talk genetically modified foods. But not all genetically modified foods are done the same way. But if you're putting in, I'm just going to make this up, if you're putting in bat genes into an apple, that might not be such a good thing to do, because we don't quite understand and know when we start mixing it. But if you're genetically modifying something with its own species, let's say, it's not so crazy. So genetically modified can also get really blown up as in grouping it all into one thing. So genetics, even for ourselves, that again, just understand they really don't know everything. And the people who know most about the genes will say that's what they'll say. They don't know. They're hopeful, and they've probably made a lot of progress with just even, being able to map the genes. Of course, we can be grateful for that. And then genes, genetic and modification into foods, and then again focusing on foods that are real and whole. Maybe that is looking at eating foods in season, but that's not always doable when we think of it. But the cultures around the planet, like the Inuit say, they would dry their meat, right? They would do that. In some cultures, fermenting was very important to keep food supplies going a little bit longer. And that's why we have fermented, right? And these processes do help keep the food naturally longer. So jerky's coming back into play more and more. Yogurt's very much a fermented food as well, and that keeps longer in the fridge. And so there's much about foods to consider for me to even cover in this one talk. And I did talk about lectins before. Be careful, again, any one topic and relating to science is what they're learning. And I always like to bring it back to nature, just simply about the seeds carrying lectins, is that seeds don't want to be absorbed by the body. So it's being able to produce, that lectins that's part of the seeds is able to keep it whole, so then it just passed through us. Makes sense. That's nature. If you've ever seen bear scat or any of these, or raccoon scat, a lot of the seeds are passing right through the digestive system. Now, as a holistic nutritionist, one would say, well, whole foods aren't supposed to be passing through you, but seeds, not so much. Corn is a seed. you may have these scenarios coming up, not the greatest, how can I say it, not the worst thing to happen, because that's nature. I'm not going to say to the bear your digestive system isn't working well, although maybe we would fall into that because they're not processing the seeds. But seeds generally do not want to be digested by the digestive tract of animals, and therefore there would be irritants, of course, on seeds, be it lectins being one of them, because that would allow the body to, digestive system not to digest it, and then it would move through. So there's irritation, or sometimes they're saying inflammation, but that's just natural. That's just natural. If you have to look at where your health is. If you're trying to heal, you may want to avoid the lectins, avoid glutens, avoid certain foods. And that's the healing. We know if we have a fever or a flu, we are out. We're not even eating anything to heal, right? That's way at the other end of the spectrum. But we're thinking about people who have chronic illness and disease. There may be changes you want to look at with your diet to help improve, to eliminate irritants or inflammation. So I hope that makes sense. So today, we're just speaking about the genetics, the Human Genome Project not being what they expected, and for the most part, many people do not know that it even is over and it's finished. And I don't want to say that's the worst thing. I mean, it's too bad. Diseases aren't going to be done that way. But our body is our body is very complicated, and I don't think there is a magic bullet anyway. If we want to look at mind and body and how the mind affects the physical. There's very much to that. So that's what I had to come on to say today. Genetics, Human Genome Project, to let you know, genetically modifying, and then the healthier foods to move towards. I'm going to wish you a great day. I'm always looking to see if anybody actually has any questions, any particular topic that you want me to talk about or look at. I mean, it might be things I've already researched and easy for me to talk about. I'm assuming that people have more and more questions over time, but when I do ask people, I have to laugh because, do you have any questions? A lot of people are just, I don't know what questions to ask. And then I'll just say this, I heard actually on the radio, and it was a philosopher, and he was saying, it is better to have not all the answers, but to have questions and the answers. So question, that's what I got out of that piece of philosophy, is to question. That's where we'll end up for today. I want to wish everybody a great day, a great week. I want to thank you for coming on board. And it's great to see everyone. And I'll look forward to next week live at 5 Mondays. Take care. And post any comments down below. That'd be great. And these are all posted on YouTube. So that's a great way to go back in history with some of the information. It's all lots of fun. I'm having fun with it. So I hope you're having some fun. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.